Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jen, also known as BostonJen on Ravelry and BostonJen1 on Instagram, and I'm the host of the Down Cellar Studio Audio Podcast. And I am joined today by my friend Jen. So you're getting two Jens in one on this Crafty Chat episode. So welcome, Jen. Thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about you?
Sure, Jen. Thanks for having me. So glad to join you on the channel. So as Jen said, I'm Jen. So it's kind of like Jen squared, right? Crafty Jen squared. I'm NDGen04 on Ravelry and Instagram. And I also host the newly relaunched audio podcast, the Commuter Knitter Podcast. I've got a couple new episodes out after taking a 4+ year break in between episodes. I've mom of twins that just turned 5 years old, so they've been keeping me busy. But I just relaunched the podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts and all the places you could find audio podcasts. So
awesome. I, for one, was very excited to see you back in the podcasting space, and I mentioned it on a recent episode of my podcast, and I think I might have posted on Instagram or something about it too, because folks kept saying, "Oh, thank you for letting me know. I didn't know she was back." So I think I always subscribe to podcasts that I like, but I don't know that people always do that. And if you don't subscribe, then it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. So if someone comes back and you don't know. So if there's something you like in the podcast world, make sure you subscribe, whether it's here on YouTube or in your podcatcher, because you might just get a little surprise in there one day.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I have so many podcasts that I just keep subscribing to because you never know, someone might come back. And I didn't really intend to take that long of a break, but life happens, it gets in the way. And my knitting took a turn a little bit, and now I'm back. And so a lot of people have found me again. And thank you for the shout out as well, and of course for having me here. And it's just great to be back.
I know, it's when you're like a capital K knitter, like both of us are, it's like hard not to share. Like when you're not knitting much because you don't have the time or the bandwidth, that's one thing. But when you're making, it's so hard not to share, isn't it?
Oh, totally. And I think that just kind of fuels the creative energy, sharing it and getting feedback from others and seeing what other people are doing. It just kind of snowballs into this, just this big creative energy that you just feed off of. And you're right, I don't have anything to share, it was, not much to talk about on a knitting podcast. But now that I've got stuff to share and getting that feedback and just kind of building off of that, and just this is such a wonderful community, and it's so great to be a part of it, and to just, like you said, be a knitter with a capital K, and join in on all that fun. So
yeah, for sure. So we're going to get into projects in just a second, but I think we should probably tell folks sort of how we met and became friends, because I always wonder that when people are chatting with each other. And so you and I have known each other for a long time. So I'm going to start, and then I have a terrible memory, so probably you'll be friends because you're
sure
very clever. So from what I remember, we started our podcast around the same time, and there was also several other sort of new knitting podcasts around that time or slightly after us. And Michelle of the Actually Knitting Podcast, which is not in production right now, sort of got some of us together on Google Hangouts and said, do you guys want to do a video chat? And I feel like video chat was new back when we were doing this, because it was maybe 2014, 2015. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I remember getting to know you. Am I missing anything?
No, I think you're right, Jenny. We started right around the same time. And I think we had chatted, like on Ravelry or just on the message boards and whatnot. But it was really through that kind of Google Hangout and VKN, right? Is that what we called it? Virtual Knit Night, getting to know one another. And and then it just blossomed from there. And, yes, this fiber art is what brought us together, but, we definitely became very, very good friends throughout that, and, sharing our own life stories together. And, the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we should say, so I'm in Boston, hence the BostonJen. I'm about 20 miles south of Boston, and Jen is in Connecticut. So when I remember when I found out you were podcasting, I was like, oh my goodness, it's another Jen, and she's in New England. So there's a chance we can meet each other. And I think I was just looking back today. I think the first time you and I met in person was at Vogue Knitting Live in New York, and we took a doll knitting class with Susan B. Anderson. Was that the first time we met, do you think?
I think so. That would have been January
2015.
2015 or 2014? Yeah, sometime around.
I think it was
mid
2015 because I gifted that doll to my niece Ayla that year for her birthday.
Oh, okay. Actually, I came across that doll, and Aurora, one of my twins, decided it's hers now. I have to finish it. It is literally where we left off in that. Haven't picked it up since.
Oh, that's
so I'm gonna have. I have the directions. I've got everything over there in the project bag. So she did that. So I think that must be where we met for the first time, and I think we met again probably at Rhinebeck later that year, maybe.
Probably.
And yeah, being close together, geographically, our paths do cross at some of the local events local to us here in the Northeast.
So we're lucky to have several to pick from. All right. Yes. Well, that's enough about all that, but I figured sometimes people like to know what the connection is. So there's a little bit about us. Why don't you tell us what you're knitting on right now?
So I picked up a very old, for me, well, I have a lot of old works in progress, but I figured I needed something that I could just zoom around. It's just plain stockinette at the moment, but it is, and I thought I had the pattern here. Video. I'm used to audio, I don't have to show stuff.
You get a pass.
So this is the Arangio Sweater from Knitty. It's by Ann Weaver, and this is a free pattern on the knitty.com website, and I am knitting it in Wonderland yarns. I do not have a ball band, but it's just this gray.
Is it like a worsted weight or a DK, something like that?
So this is actually sport weight.
Oh.
So it's going to be on the lighter side. But I did this years ago. So I started this project. I looked back on Lavallee. It was 2014. I last worked on it in 2015 because past Jen made a little tiny note here that I used US 5 and US 6 needles were in the bag.
That was
October
nice.
2015. I was pregnant with the twins back, at that. So, but it's really neat. You do this turned hem with, I think this is it's a certain size leaning braid. And then it's just straight stockinette. And then it's the color work. It'll be the color work at the top. So I'm going to do this I think it's called Cherry Tart, I think is the color, with the color work and the cream at the top. So
beautiful. And then will you steek it? Because you're just around, right?
Yes. So I will steek it. So I do have a line of, I don't know if you can see it very well, but a line of purl stitches here where I will eventually steek it. I took a class at Stitches, again, 6-7 years ago, a long time ago. I took a steek class at Stitches East when it was here in Hartford, Connecticut. And I probably cast this on right around, like shortly after I took that class. And so I'll have to kind of revisit that when the time comes. But yes, so just knitting around and around. I'll do the sleeves and then join it all together for the color work up at the top and then do a steek. I haven't decided if I'm going to do a button band or a zipper for it. We'll see.
You get a little time to decide. Do you want to do something ironic and funny? So I took a steeking class with Ann Weaver down at the Fiber Company down in Baltimore with some friends, and it was awesome. For those of you who don't know, steeking just means that you're actually cutting your knitting. So those stitches in the middle that Jen showed us, she's actually you'll reinforce it somehow, and there's different ways of doing it, and then cut it open, which is it's so exciting. It's you did it in class, right? So
we did. And I think it was a steek and zipper class. Might have been with Franklin Habit. I don't really
I remember you taking that class, so I think you're right.
Yeah. So it is a little nerve-wracking, right? And you're like Jen said, you do reinforce the stitches, and especially with this is super wash. So you would usually want to do it with a non-superwash wool that will kind of grip to itself. So I'll have to be careful I'll probably do a crochet reinforcement because I'm not that great with the sewing machine. So I think I'll do a
method.
Yeah. So I'll just do a crochet chain reinforcement and then I'm going to take the scissors to it and cut it. And if it doesn't turn out so well, it might just be a good story for the podcast to share.
There's always that when you're a podcaster.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. If it doesn't go that well, it's kind of boring to talk about, but but I do have a ways to go, again, it's sport weight. So, and it's on size 6 needles. So it's, it's at a slightly looser gauge for a sport weight, but again, it's been several years since I've touched it anyway, so I've got a ways to.
Well, that'll be good, like movie night knitting and that kind of thing. I'm sure with two girls, little girls, it's good to have something that if you have to just drop it because something is spilled, you can put it down and not worry.
Oh, totally. And, something that helps me too is I put a little progress keeper right before we started so that, once we get done with this, I'm like, oh yeah, look how far I got, because, just plain gray, stocking it in the round, it, doesn't feel like you're making much progress.
Yeah, that helps. I did that when I knit a fingering weight boxy sweater because that was just a gigantic tube on very small needles. And I put a stitch marker in every day and it was fun to see, even if it was only this much at the end of the week.
Sure.
Yeah. Those little
when it says you have to knit so many inches, it's like, well, I'm not getting very far, but yeah, you can measure that. Yeah. How about you? What are you working on?
So I was knitting on a pair of socks, which I'll talk about in a second. But speaking of gray sweaters and mostly mindless knitting, that's sort of what I'm doing right now with this, which is the Freewheeler sweater by Kristen Finlay. And so you cast on a whole lot of stitches.
That's a lot of stitches.
It's basically going to go from arm to arm. So this is the back. So it will go all the way like that. Then I think not that I've read the directions because that would be really intelligent. I think you do the same thing for the front. And then it's sort of like this shirt where it will bat wing down a little bit where you connect them because of the short rows.
Okay.
And then I think you work in the round and the rest of the body is stockinette.
Great.
So it's pretty cool. It's pretty easy. I am holding yarn doubled. It calls for, I think, a fingering weight wool and a mohair, which I did not use, but I am using some holiday yarn and they're flock sock fingering and it's called Badger Black, but to me that's like medium charcoal gray.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And then I'm using, I think it's Cece's wool and it's one of those skeins that's like 1,200 yards. Yeah, it's huge. I bought it at Rhinebeck. I'm not going to take it out of here because I'll never get it back in. And it's nicely
wow.
Isn't it pretty?
That's gorgeous.
I bought this at Rhinebeck because I was in love. Like these are just all of my favorite colors right now. And then I got worried that it would just be a little busy if I just knit it by itself. And so I decided to pair it up and I'm really happy. Oh, here's the Cherries Jubilee is the colorway on that one.
Oh, wow.
So, a pretty good price, $44, right? For 1,120 yards. So
okay,
right? So I'm holding it doubled, and I really like the way that the gray kind of mutes it down, but you can still see each of the colors pretty nicely, I think.
Oh yeah, it looks so squishy.
It's so squishy. I mean, you gotta love garter stitch for that. But yeah, once I got past, now I'm not doing short rows. I have to go until this part at my wrist is about 3 3/4 inches.
Okay.
So I don't know what I do next. But so now I'm just knitting straight. It was a little bit tricky doing the short rows just because I would pick it up and put it down and kind of forget what I was supposed to do. The only other tricky thing has been with holding the yarn double. If you're like knitting in the dark, watching TV or something, you could miss one of the loops and have to fix it. But I've gotten pretty good at repairing those. So it's not been too big of an issue. But I'll be excited to get past that. I'm kind of hoping maybe this weekend I'll get through that top part and then I can see what I do next.
Yeah. Stop and read the directions, right?
Yeah. At some point I will.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what else have you been working on, or maybe something you've recently finished? What else do you want to share with us?
So another project that I'm currently working on, I have on the needles, is a sweater for Aurora. She's one of my twins, and I printed the pattern because I'm doing this on my iPad and usually use the electronic patterns, but it's the North Shore Pullover. So again, another bottom up color work yoke sweater. And what I love about this is by Tin Can Knits, and it comes in a wide range of sizes. So it has from baby 0 to 6 months all the way up to 4XL in adult sizes. So I technically could knit, a whole family of sweaters from the pattern, which is really great. So I have 2 sleeves finished so far.
I love it. That is one of my favorite colorways. I designed my Tan House Brook shawl and hat using that colorway on their fingering base and on their worsted base. And it is just a stunning color. It's coming through pretty true to life, I think, on camera too, which is nice.
Yeah, no, it's great. I was a little worried it was going to blend in with my wall here. But yeah, no, so this is the Rock Creek Park colorway by a neighborhood fiber company. This is in their organic Studio DK, which is just, it's just so soft and it's so pretty. So I have the 2 sleeves done, and then I'm working on the body, which, speaking of progress, I think I did move the progress keeper. So this is what I knitted this morning. And so it's just the body so far. So the ribbing and then just straight stockinette. The good thing about kids sweaters, there's no waist shaping or anything. So I just kind of knit basically 3 tubes, and then join them together. I'm not working on this now during our chat because I am going to start to blend in, because I didn't alternate skeins when I was knitting this. With kids sweaters, I don't find it really necessary per se to alternate skeins the way I would say if I was knitting a sweater for myself, where I have several skeins that I'm trying to blend the colors together. Because when they're hand dyed like this, they could be, these are pretty close together. Yeah, so this is what I did the sleeves. This is what's the body.
Okay.
But
something to that smaller circumference too, where it doesn't seem as blatant if there's like pooling or striping or something. So
Exactly. But what I do when I'm getting close to where I'm going to connect the sleeves, I do start to blend it in, just so I don't get one line, right across, especially across the sleeve or across the body. So I'm going to knit a few more inches and then probably start to blend them together, so that when I get close to putting the sleeves on, that part is less noticeable.
Yeah,
but at least it's not. Yeah, it's not through the whole body of the sweater. But like I said, if I was doing this for myself, I would probably alternate skeins. Or I know a lot of folks have been talking lately about helical knitting, which I've not tried yet, where you're not alternating right at the same time, but you kind of move that join all around, kind of creating this spiral, which I do want to try. So next time I'm knitting a sweater for myself, I might try that.
I keep needing to try that too. I know I feel like it's all the rage right now. I had only tried it half-heartedly once, and it was leaving a weird gap. And I'm sure that was user error, because people are doing it successfully. I feel like there's like hat patterns that call for that too. And I feel like that might be a good way for me to learn it. But I think that'd be a great option, especially in those kind of sweaters. I'm curious. So it's so funny. If you've listened to Jen's recent episodes, Aurora is very excited about this sweater, which her enthusiasm is just incredibly adorable. Because it's just the Rock Creek sweater, Rock Creek Park.
Rock Creek Park.
I didn't realize it was color work. Like none of that registered. So what other kind of colors do you have picked out for it? So it doesn't matter if you have them with you. I was just curious, what the color palette is.
So it's very similar to what, actually let me get the bigger picture here, what the sample is. So it has this mountain motif at the top. So when I first started knitting this sweater for her, and she picked the pattern with both Zelda and Aurora, I have them pick their sweaters, because if I'm going to spend the time to knit it, I want them to wear it. And if they pick it, well, then they're going to probably wear it, because it's something they chose. And so she called this her Mount sweater. So my parents have a house up in the mountains where they spend the weekends, and eventually retire up there. And this has a mountain motif. So I don't know if you could see that very well. Yeah. So it's got these waves, and then the trees, and then the mountain. So it'll look very similar to this. So a light blue. I do have the yarn for the cream color, which is another neighborhood fiber company. This is Roland Park. So it's okay. I think there is a slight color to it. I don't know if you could see it here, but otherwise it looks very, very neutral, very creamy. And then green and brown for the mountains and the trees. So yeah, once I get to that part, then I find that part flies. On recent episodes of the podcast, I have been talking about top-down versus bottom-up construction, because I was very much a top-down sweater knitter for a long time. And the past couple sweaters that I've knitted for the girls have been bottom-up. And it's like, okay, getting through this part, right, the kind of boring, not fun part. But then once you get it, it's it flies off the needles. So I'm excited to get to that point.
It's kind of funny that you're doing that on your sweater now too, which is something you you put away, who knows for what reasons at the time, but it probably wasn't the most interesting project because it's just the stockinette part where you are right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, part of the reason I put it away, I was pregnant with the twins at the time, so it was
me wear it.
Exactly. And not as if it was it's not as if it was a pullover, because it is a cardigan. I could have worn it open, not a big deal. But I think I was preoccupied with other things at the time, and I knew I probably wouldn't wear it for a while. So, yeah. But probably true. The miles of gray stockinette probably didn't help with that. So, what else do you have? You said you're working on a sock?
I am working on a sock. This is a pair of Knit Picks Felici sock. I magic loop my socks. This is called the Whale Song colorway.
Ooh, that's pretty.
And I'm really liking it. I feel like a lot of people are blue people, and I think it's 6 different colors of blue. And then I used, the first sock is already done. I used some Knit Pick Stroll in navy for the toe and the heel. I figure those are the parts where they're most likely to get dirty. So why not just go ahead? And I like having leftovers of self-striping yarn so that I can use it for like Franken socks, where you just mix a whole bunch together, and then you don't actually have to change balls of yarn very often when you're making those. If you're getting 3 different colors from a leftover, then you're just changing yarn less often. So it's kind of a sneaky way to do that. But I think these are probably going to be for my mom.
Those are pretty
colors. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a BostonJen mom color. I know you just knit that beautiful blue sweater for her for Christmas. It's just
yeah. She's a blue lady for sure. It looks great with her blue eyes. So
absolutely.
Can't go wrong with that. I try to always have socks going for my mom and then at least one of my other like best girlfriends. So they're the people that I most often gift socks to, and I have plenty of hand knit socks. I like having some on the needles for me, but I'm never quite as motivated to get those finished as I am for having ready for gifts. So
it's funny you should mention that, Jen. I know we weren't necessarily planning to talk about this. So I was going to cast on the mate to this sock. That's why it's on the sock blocker, because I figured, I'll show it. And this is a sock for myself, because I've been wearing basically the same. Actually, I've been living in this sweater during work from home times, and like the same 3 or 4 hand knit socks. And I've knitted socks for Carlos, my husband, and my dad. I knitted a pair of socks for Christmas, and it's been a while since I knitted myself a sock. I finished this one back in, again, 2015 during Stash Dash when Jasmine and I were competing in Stash Dash that
you
summer.
You were the original competitor, we should say.
Yes. And I only finished the one, and then this sock has been without a mate. And I was going to start it this morning, and I usually start my self-striping socks, which I'm going to ask you, do you match your socks exactly when you do self-striping?
So it depends. If it's easy to do, then I do it. And it sounds like you are a toe up. I'm a cuff down girl. So actually I wasn't going to show this either, but let's just go with it. So I just grabbed 2 balls of Patons Kroy to cast on another pair, because we're going to be taking a drive tomorrow and I need to have knitting. So what I do is I make the slip knot between 2 colors. So then I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there's gray along the bottom and pink on the actual stitches. So then I tried to do the same thing on the other one. I'm like, well, I have 2 sets of needles. I'll go ahead and just get them both set up. Turns out I like to pull from the center of a ball. When I started pulling from the center, the yarn was going in the opposite direction.
That's odd.
Which is so weird for Patons Kroy. I feel like usually if you pull from the same side, the colors go in the same order. They didn't. So I spent the last 10 minutes balling this up. So now I'll have to pull from the outside. Actually, this is even easier to see. So the gray is on the bottom and the pink is on the top, because I put the slip knot between the 2. So I try to when I can, but sometimes if I'm not clear how the repeat is going to work and I don't want to waste yarn because I like to make a long leg, then I don't, and I can be totally fine with that. What about you?
So I do like to match, and usually, so I do toe up and I do Judy's Magic Cast On. And I do usually start my slip knot where the yarn meets, but I don't know if you could see it here, but there's actually 3 rows here. There usually should be just one of the other color.
Oh.
So past Jen did not start exactly on the stripe. No. So I was going to try to sit here and figure out so that I could just do the toe and then have a sock to knit on while we were chatting.
But that's going to take a little, and you might even have to cast on a couple times if you want to get it done right, because you don't really know where you started within that stripe.
No. And I thought, well, maybe because there is a yellow, so I don't know if you could see it. And I know you probably used this Patons Kroy before, right? So there's a yellow stripe here, and there would be a yellow here, and that's when I pulled out the center, so it is the right way. So that's good to know. But yeah, I don't know. Past Jen did not.
There probably was a good reason for it, but who knows?
Could be. I don't know. Who knows? So I'm gonna have to think about it, or just decide. You know what? I don't care, and they don't have to match, and that'll be it. So we'll see. But yes, this was a Stash Dash 2015. I know you guys have already started your trash talk, right, for 2021?
Yeah. I think Genevieve is on my side, so watch out. I'm converting all the children to come around to you, Jen.
Although I do believe, didn't Jasmine say she was going to send her this way? So we could share, on the East Coast here with.
All right,
Genevieve,
I like that. Yeah. So those are my socks. Speaking of Patons Kroy, then I just finished a pair of socks in the last couple days that are not striped. They're the FX line, which is more like a marled yarn. And these are fun. My friend Laura picked out this skein, and mostly she was like, I'm dying to just see what happens. And it's basically like a barber pulled yarn, and every so often one of the plies changes.
Oh, wow.
Drifts between the 2 colors. So it's pretty cool looking. I'm really happy with it. The one strange thing is that this is the Cameo colors colorway. I have 2 balls because they come in 50-gram skeins. They're both the same color and the same dye lot with the same tag. They look completely different, in my opinion. I mean, they look like they could be cousins.
Sure.
But they don't really look like the same dye lot, do they?
No, the one in now. See, I don't know if we're backwards. That one has a very it's darker where it's darker, but also the pink seems it's lighter too.
Yes, it's
so
hard to tell on camera, but this one has like a brighter blue in it, right here. I mean, it's fine. Laura is gonna like these. The other bummer is that there was a big knot in it.
Oh no.
So then I ended up, and it's right here. I think I did a reasonably good job of kind of doing some color work of, skip a stitch here and there or slipping a stitch here and there. So, I don't think it's a huge eyesore situation. I'm not sure a non-knitter would really realize it. But anyways, I'm glad they're done. I'm a little bit disappointed, but in the end, I think it's fine.
Yeah. It's still a nice warm pair of socks, and I'm sure she'll appreciate them.
It is. Yeah, she'll love them. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
what is the sweater that you're wearing? I'm curious now that you've mentioned it. Do you remember what the pattern's called?
So this is the New York cardigan. I knitted this during the Lavallee, so during the Olympics in 2012. I don't remember if it was summer or winter. I do remember it was just kind of like one of those cast on knit something for 2 weeks sweater. I think I started this. It was the year I started the podcast because I remember talking about this.
I remember you talking about it on the podcast.
In the podcast, and actually, it's held up really well. I wear this sweater all the time. It does need a quick shave, to depill it a little bit. But I knit it out of Madeline Tosh DK Twist or Twist DK, and it's a top-down raglan. And I don't know if I can stand up here, but it's got lace on the bottom here, and then this lace part that goes all the way around, you knit it separately, and then you sew it to the sweater. So it's nice, and it's just open front, but I can wrap it around me if I get chilly. And for me, this is actually a good length sleeve, elbow length, or anything longer and I want to be snuggled up in it.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing stuff around the house or, even just when I'm working from home, this length is good because it keeps me warm, but I don't have to constantly struggle with my sleeves. So.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like it's a good fit if you're wearing it that often. Is that a applied yarn, I'm guessing?
It is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because you were saying it held up so well. I know I feel like a lot of the Mad Tosh yarns that are really popular, some of them at least are singles, which you would think would hold up to, very vigorous wearing. So.
Yeah, and this one I think it even has a tighter twist than their regular DK base. I don't even know if this base is still around, to be honest. I'm terrible about keeping up with that kind of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's held up really, really well. And like I said, I've basically been living in this sweater for, all of work from home and everything. It's easy to throw on, or if I get too warm, take it off. And it works out well.
Yeah. Well, and you are a very prolific sweater knitter, previously mostly for yourself, but now I know you're making lots of sweaters for the girls. So you've shown us what you're working on for Aurora, but I know you recently finished something for Zelda, right?
I did. So speaking of bottom up color work sweaters, so this is a pattern by Tanis Fiber Arts, and it's called the Crazyheart sweater. So this was again a bottom up, so it was knitting the body, knitting the sleeves, and then putting it together. And Zelda wanted a rainbow. And so one thing I've been loving about doing these color work sweaters is I do have a lot of single skeins of DK weight yarn kind of just in my stash. And I've also purchased some like, ooh, pretty. And I'm like, ooh, put it in my cart and grab it. But what's really, it's been really great to kind of pull these colors all together. So this is just a mix of all different, I think there's some Lola Bean Yarn Company in here. This is from the Yarn and Us. They were a new to me dyer. I think they were a sponsor of the Pigskin Party this past fall. And Cappy was on my team for the Pigskin Party. This is another Lola Bean. This was a Madeline Tosh that was in my stash. Another Lola Bean. This is another Madeline Tosh here. And then these two, I think this raspberry was the Yarn and Us, and then another Mad Tosh. So, just a nice little color.
Yeah, what a great way to use up leftovers, especially up by the neck there. That couldn't even use like a quarter or an eighth of a skein, right? Like that's just such a small amount of yarn.
It's true. And actually, I haven't even counted the yardage yet to see how much it's used, but I basically still have like a full ball of yarn. And I've used some of these colors in other sweaters for the girls. And it's just kind of great to kind of put it together, because while I have twins, I'm not one to knit the same thing more than once, although in my queue, I do have matching sweaters for the three of us coming up at some point. But it's nice to coordinate because I can just use some of these same colors, in the other sweaters that I'm knitting for them. So that's been fun. And then the body is just full Misa in their DK base, just, I think it was called Field Mouse was the color there. But I actually had to, she wanted me to show it, but she was also wearing it. So I had to trade her. I'm like, mommy's going to show it on, to Auntie Jen, and then you can have it back. She's basically been living it. It actually hasn't even been blocked yet. I really do need to soak it and block it so to kind of even out the stitches a little bit, but it looks okay.
It looks
good for a kid's sweater, yeah. This was fun. And I think this was another one that has all the range of sizes from baby all the way up to adult. So technically could knit this again.
Was that part of the Heart on My Sleeve?
Yes.
Book? Okay. Yes. Yeah. And I think all of the ones in that book, they had a pretty generous size range. So.
I think so. They all used the same base pattern. So the same body and sleeve construction. I think the women's version had some waist shaping in it as well. And then all of the yokes were different. So some of them had cables and, like a raglan yoke. Others were color work like this. Yeah, it's got a lot of different patterns. I'm not sure if you can get the compilation together any longer. I don't know if they're selling it all together. But all the patterns are, I think, available through the designers individually. So
yeah, I'll link to all of that, whatever is available in down below. So
yeah, sure. Other than the socks, what else have you finished lately?
I finished what I'm wearing, which actually
nice.
forgot about. This is a crochet shawl. I'll go ahead and take it off. One little tip, I tend to wear triangular shawls with a shawl pin underneath. So you can't, I mean, it's beautiful and it kind of matches, but you know, I'm not intending that people see it. It seems like crochet shawls are very sort of traditional, like equilateral triangles, which is not such a thing in knitting anymore. I feel like the elongated triangle is much more wearable because then you have more at the sides, depending on how you want to wear it, to wrap around you. So that is my kind of one qualm. I guess I need to start designing crochet shawls, but this is called Laura's Tranquility Shawl. And I don't know how much you'll be able to see the detail with stuff behind it, but it's a lot of half double crochet, but then there's also some lacy stitches and some puff stitches, and then these cool kind of clustery lace situations. And this is Malabrigo. And I think it's something like Archangel or something like that is the colorway.
It looks familiar. I might have a skein of that in my stash. It looks very familiar. It's beautiful.
When I bought it at the yarn shop, she said that it's one of their most popular colorways. So I think this pattern calls for fingering weight yarn and a smaller hook than whatever I used, but this is a worsted weight yarn. And so I just used a bigger hook. I didn't get all the way through the pattern. I think it's in my Ravelry project page. I think I got through like row 36 and there was quite a bit more after that, but it's basically continues the repeats of some plain rows and then some puff stitches and then plain rows and then more detail. So it was easy to stop after just a couple of the half double crochet rows. And then I just added a single crochet to the edge just to use up as much as I possibly could. But I'm really happy with it. One thing that always surprises me, and it shouldn't at this point, is how much crochet shawls grow when you block them.
Oh, really?
It's insane. And knitted shawls grow too, but to me, the difference with crochet shawls is just vast. I think this grew over 20 inches.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like, I feel like knit shawls don't grow by that much. Like, you'll get a few inches out of it, sure. But I think it was like 39 inches or something before blocking. And then I think it was 64.
Oh, wow.
Across the top after it was done. It's like, yeah.
So basically your wingspan, right? I mean, I would think that's
longer. Yeah.
Wow.
No, yeah, probably just about that. I'm 5'4". So yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is crazy. And did it yardage wise, did it use up more than you thought it would, or was it, kind of what you expected?
No. So I've done a couple of crocheted shawls using 2 skeins of worsted weight, and so it's about the size that I expected. Okay. Let me see if I can show you without making a ton of noise. It's because of that triangle shape. It's longer than I really want or need it to be, so it comes it's beyond my crotch. It's pretty long, so it's a little bit unnecessary in that direction, but in order to get enough to wrap around you, you really do need it to be bigger. So it's what I expected given past experience, but I'll probably start like I did for knit designing and just start modifying patterns and seeing what I learn. And then if I come up with something interesting, then maybe I'll publish it. But
well, that's how you started in the first place, right? With your very first shawl pack. You were just playing around and
I was, and then people said, "Oh, great! When can we buy it?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Funny how that happens, right? It's just kind of like,
So, what about you? You have anything else you want to share with us?
Well, so I did bring up, because when I asked the girls what they wanted me to share, of course I couldn't share one without sharing the other. I said, "Well, Laura, I'm sharing but Mommy, you have to share my unicorn sweater." So this is her unicorn. So this is the mini last unicorn by Bad Wolf Girl Sits and Knits, I think is her podcast. Meghan Regan, I think is her name.
I think it's Bad Wolf Girl Knits for like her designs.
Yes,
Sits and Knits is the
her podcast
channel.
Yeah. So this was a top down color work construction. So you do all the the color work fun part, and then the body and the sleeves here. So the body of the sweater, this purple, is Suburban Stitcher in her tweed DK. So she did a tweed update back in the fall. And I had this grand plan of doing these like kind of cable-y sweaters for the girls, but again, letting them pick. This is what Aurora picked.
Beautiful with that. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know that I would have thought to have used it, but it's incredible.
Well, and that's the thing. I have to remind myself that, kind of stretching outside my comfort zone or outside what I think is going to look good, because again, they're 5 years old. They don't, when they dress up in silly clothes day, I always joke, it's like, well, this is just what they wear normally. Like, mismatched leggings and sweaters and, 2 different socks. I mean, that's just kind of.
That's Tuesday.
Exactly. Oh, to be young again. Right. So, again, I wouldn't have necessarily picked the tweed to do this, but I will say it did make it more interesting as I was knitting the body, because I've been knitting a longer body for the girls and longer sleeves to keep kind of, figure they can wear it a lot longer. And if we need to roll them up, we roll them up. I did do a split hem on the bottom of this one. I think the sweater I had knitted for Zelda had a split hem on it. I was like, oh, I'm going to do that for this one too. So I just did a split hem. So we stop knitting in the round. And then you just do back and forth on the ribbing on one side, and then you bind off, and then you go back and you do the ribbing on the other side. So that was fun. And again, a lot of the same colors that I used again for Zelda's sweater here in the rainbow, and then her unicorns. She sat and joined me on the podcast when I talked about this sweater, and she counted there are 11 unicorns and 11 hearts. So she wanted me to remind everybody that there were that many unicorns and hearts. But this was fun. Again, I enjoy color work. It's one of my favorite techniques to do, and can't go wrong with a rainbow and a unicorn, right?
You really can't. I love it so much, and I think it's fun as a knitter not to have to knit everything twice, I'm sure. But like, how fun too that like their sweaters do coordinate. Some of the colors are the same, some of them aren't. It doesn't matter. But like, even if you got like professional pictures done or something, people would think that you did that on purpose. And I guess partially it sort of is, but they have some similar interests, but then they want some different things, and it still looks beautiful together. And bonus, it's a little more interesting for mom.
Yeah, exactly. And I've done that forever. I've knitted 1 or 2 things that I've knit twice for them, but even then I did it in different yarns. So it was a different color. It was, coordinated, but not exactly, matchy together. So I've been busy, lately, kind of picking up my knitting again and getting things done. Now I've got to skip through these languishing works in progress and knit more things for myself too. That's another thing that's kind of been on my mind this year, is just kind of getting back to knitting for me too. So.
I know it's kind of hard to find that balance, I think, and it'll be interesting to see sort of how it evolves with you. But like your girls, you can just tell how much they love the things that you make for them. And I'm fortunate that, my mom and my best friends and my nieces and nephews really appreciate the stuff that I make for them too. And so it makes me want to make for them and to give. And so I really want to do that. And then every once in a while, it's the same kind of thing of like the freewheeler sweater I started in October or November, and then promptly put it on hold to do Christmas knitting. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I really want to do both. Like, I don't, not that I only want to knit for me, because I so enjoy knitting for them. And it's tricky to find that balance sometimes.
Well, and it's just the pure joy too, right? I'm sure you see this with your nieces and nephews when you give them, you make these adorable little stuffies that you knit or crochet actually, right? You mostly crochet them now. For your nieces and nephews, and just to see their face light up in excitement, and they love it. And I think you've had to repair a few recently, right? That have been loved so much, right? And it's just, it warms our heart. And we do this. Yes, it's great again to have something for ourselves, but to share that and kind of, knit or crochet some love into it too. I think there's something to be said for that and whatnot. So
absolutely. And when you, I'm not sure if you said this while we were recording or when we were just getting set up, but you had to sort of wrestle one of those sweaters off the girls to get to show it today. Like that kind of like in all parts of life, people vote with their feet, right? So if they're wearing the sweater all the time, like there's nothing more pure than that kind of reaction. So.
Oh, and the same thing with this unicorn sweater for Aurora. She wasn't wearing it today, but I mean, I think she wore it for like 3 days straight. And same thing, I had to say, okay, can mommy just wash it? And because I did want to wash it, because, you know, even though I'm not going anywhere, it's still, you know, just kind of getting it nice and clean and getting the stitches evened out a little bit. And then, of course, it took a couple days because it's been winter and, you know, colder in the house. So it took a while to dry. And finally, when it was, she put it right back on and, you know, again, wore it. They don't wear it to preschool. I'm still a little nervous about sending them. And even though they're mostly superwash, and again, they could be repaired if something happens. But when they're home and they're on, you know, on the weekends, we wear them, and they're very, very well loved. And, you know, it makes me more excited to do more and to knit more for them. So all good.
I love it. Yeah. Well, I'm sure we could talk knitting for days and days and days, but I think
we could.
Maybe a good note to end on. I'm so happy that you came on and so excited to share. And just in case the girls are watching, Auntie Jen says, hello, Aurora and Zelda. I'm so excited that you shared your sweaters with us.
Yes, they will be so excited if you know, because we usually watch YouTube on the TV. I think one of them mentioned when we were chatting on the podcast, you know, are we going to FaceTime your knitting friends? Like they, you know, they're still kind of understanding the concept of it. But when I watch knitting podcasts, I usually just have it on the TV in the background and whatnot. So yeah, they'll be so excited to see their, you know, to hear their names on TV. You know, they'll say they're famous.
They're famous now. It's true. It's on YouTube. They're famous. Just ask my nieces and nephews. That's how it works. So
I'm sure it is.
The right age of 5, they've made it.
Exactly. Jen, but thank you so much for having me and for catching up and chatting and talking about knitting. As you said, we could talk for hours and hours about knitting and anything under the sun, but definitely appreciate your inviting me on your channel and getting a chance to spend the afternoon talking fiber and knitting and everything like that. So I appreciate it.
Anytime. I think we should, maybe in a couple months, we'll do it again. This was a lot of fun. I love it. All right. Well, I will link to everything down below so you can find Jen on social or the Commuter Knitter Podcast. And I will link to all of the projects. But as always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on Ravelry on BostonJen or email me at downcellarstudio@gmail.com. And if I don't know the answer, I'll get in touch with Jen and we'll figure it out for you. But we'll link to lots of good stuff below. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Bye. Bye.